Hello, this is the Surviving Healthcare Podcast, and I have my American flag T-shirt on, and I've got Scott Schara here in a much more formal, nice shirt, and he's we most of you guys have seen him a couple times before because he's given us periodic updates, and today he's going to discuss his book launch about his experiences, and I mean Scott's just ridden a freaking roller coaster for years trying to reconcile what happened to his daughter. She was murdered by a hospital, and the physicians in the hospital, and it's a theme that is recurrent throughout the United States because I mean we've got the same incentives and so on going on for every hospital now. I mean it's just really sick. And my friend Christian Elliott did a podcast with somebody, and I'll link that in the show notes, who had a similar experience to Scott, and they nearly murdered her husband. They kept her away from him. They put him in the ICU without any permission, and they did all kinds of nefarious stuff. I mean, it sounds like we're in a science fiction novel. I mean, it's just unbelievable. But Scott's going to first do a recap of the whole thing, just briefly, for those of you who don't know his story, and then he's going to tell what happened with the appeal case. He lost the court case, and he's going to tell what happened to the appeal case, and then he's going to tell us what's going on with his book launch and what he hopes to achieve. So thank you,
Well,
Scott. Take
yeah,
it away.
that was a great introduction. That's yeah, so if you want me to give you the whole backstory, that's going to take us longer than one
Don't
podcast.
just cut it down and give
Okay.
us a brief story for
Well, the
those that
brief story is, yeah, you get my sense of humor for no extra charge, Robert. I mean, you're used to that by now.
sure.
Yeah, I think I'm going to start charging for it, but I don't know if I can find takers. But anyway, the short story is Grace was my best buddy. Grace had Down syndrome. She was only 19. We were not awake to the COVID psyop. We were chasing the American dream. We thought hospitals were a safe zone. All of that. We were just the typical American paying our taxes and living the dream, right? And in October of 21, I had gotten into the FLCCC, the Frontline COVID Critical Care Doctors Protocol. So we started Grace on that. She had a runny nose, and unfortunately, we bought a pulse oximeter. And I say unfortunately because we had no business buying one of those because we had no baseline. Started monitoring Grace's oxygen. The protocol said if that number drops below 94%, it's an emergency. Go to the hospital. We did that, and Grace was dead 7 days later. How did she die? The medical staff gave her a combination of meds that you use to euthanize somebody in hospice care, Precedex, lorazepam, and morphine. And when it came time to revive Grace after giving her the lethal kill shot with morphine, we all started screaming. My daughter Jessica in the room, Cindy, my wife, and I on FaceTime because Jess was panicking. And we all started screaming to save our daughter, and they wouldn't even come in the room. And we learned through that call because they hollered back from outside the room, she's DNR, do not resuscitate. And we screamed, she's not DNR, save our daughter. And they would not come in the room. And we watched her die on October 13th of 2021 at 7:27 p.m. on that call. And our life changed permanently. As I see it now, 4 years and 4 months later, Grace is a martyr, and God used her to wake me up. I have become full time in this advocacy, research, lawsuit, all of that. This has been probably, if I averaged out the number of hours per week in the last 4.5 years, it's probably been about 90 hours a week. I mean, this is intense, but I don't want anybody else to lose their best buddy. We
And Scott didn't need the money. He was trying to make a point and try to get the publicity and trying to wait. We have a duty to warn in these troubled times, and that's what he was trying to do.
Yeah, the lawsuit, I mean, it seems so crazy when you now that I understood a lawsuit before we ever got in, in just to prove your point, Robert, which I love it when you interject because you just have a way about you. You and I have become friends. You have a way about you that you have this sixth sense of what your audience is going to want to hear. So you interjecting is perfect. So not only did we not want the money, which is easily proven given the cost of the lawsuit cost us 1.1 million.
Oh my
Uh,
God.
the the most that we could have received because of statutory limits is 750,000.
Oh
So
my
we just
God.
wrap your head around that. But then on top of that, what we did just to make sure that the case was above reproach is my wife and I signed over our legal right to any proceeds. We signed it over to the nonprofit before the jury trial started. So we would never, could never get accused of doing this.
Benefiting personally.
Yeah. It was much bigger than that. So just to give people a perspective of the lawsuit, it was a wrongful death lawsuit, which means it's a civil lawsuit. When we first started working with a legal team, we thought we were going to have a federal lawsuit because Grace had Down syndrome, her disability rights were violated. They had taken me out by an armed guard. They strapped Grace down to the bed. So her disability rights were violated under the Americans with Disabilities Act. As we started researching, we found out one of the many scams of legislation is to give us the illusion that our government cares. And what we learned very quickly, that's why we filed a civil case in state court, is that a person who is disabled, their rights expire upon death. So the only way that you can stop them is if you catch them in the act and then get a court order to stop them in the act. But
Catch 22.
yeah, it's ridiculous, but I mean, this is with so many of our laws. We have this illusion that the government cares, and because we've been sold that lie for so many years, all of us we just kind of lazily and tacitly turn over our freedom to the state, and we become a statist hell, as anybody who's awake knows. So anyway, the lawsuit then we
Before we get into that, tell them about the incentives that the hospitals have. Just run over that in a few sentences.
yeah, that's a
To
great
to
question. So
not
during
only not only treat them improperly, but to kill them. I mean, it's
yeah,
just it's just you can hardly believe this.
what's interesting is that, so COVID woke me up. I started studying about COVID right after Grace died and found out that, for example, when there's a public health emergency, how they pull this off is the Health and Human Services Secretary gets to unilaterally declare a public health emergency. This is not not anything that a group decides. He just decides it on his own. So, I mean, of course, he's incentivized to do that. Once he does that, the FDA comes up with countermeasures, and if the medical system follow those countermeasures, they're immune from liability under the PrEP Act. So the two countermeasures most people are familiar with are ventilators and remdesivir. Remdesivir had a 75% kill rate and ventilators a 90% kill rate. And I studied ventilators enough because what happened during Grace's hospital stay is they kept pestering us to give a pre-authorization for a ventilator. So after she died, Grace was never on a ventilator, which is the reason we could have a lawsuit. Grace was never on remdesivir or a ventilator. If she would have died on one of those, we could have never had a lawsuit. Uh, but if we would have given a pre-authorization for a ventilator, I can guarantee you Grace would not have died on October 13th of 21. She would have died 22 days later because as I studied ventilators, I found out that was the average day that the person was killed was 22 days after putting the ventilator on. What's the reason? That maximized the hospital
Hospital billing.
profit. Yeah,
Yeah, it's
this is
crazy.
it's evil beyond what people can grasp. And when we jump into the book, I'll just give kind of a teaser for that right now. What I found out as I investigated is that COVID was COVID was child's play compared to the bigger picture that they're doing. They have been killing 142,000 Americans every single month for decades through standards of care. So COVID was a blip on the screen when you look at the history. So, and back, you wanted me to go through the
Yeah.
brief history
Once
of
you
the lawsuit.
understand that they want to kill 4/5 of us, it all becomes clear.
Well, that's big time important to understand that if your paradigm does not change, to understand that the goal is to kill us. Once you get that, that took me a while, of course, because I just didn't think that was possible. But once you understand that and you see I've dug up the receipts. I mean, I found the documents that show that they want to kill us. You see that, you can't unsee it, and then everything makes sense. It
Yeah,
all makes sense.
I'll link a post about that in the show notes.
Oh, that would be great. So anyway, the lawsuit, we went into it eyes wide open. I mean, I knew the risk of the lawsuit. I knew the the approximate cost. I didn't realize it was going to be 1.1 million. But regardless, it is what it is. I mean, we were in for the long haul. We did not have a settlement position. We wanted to take it to the jury, and I can only thank God that it was live streamed because people got to see what was behind the curtain for the first time. Um, to walk through the lawsuit, April 11th of 23 is when we filed. We had 5 claims. We had a wrongful death claim, a lack of informed consent claim, a medical battery claim, a the claim for the illegal DNR. I forgot what that's called. Declaratory judgment for the illegal DNR and a declaratory judgment for the med combination. When you go through a lawsuit, of course, they want to throw it out. The opposite side wants to throw it out. So there was multiple motions to dismiss. We survived them all. That was a miracle. I ended up with a gag order that's still in play.
What?
That was Yeah, so the gag order though is limited, and it's simply based on I've been so prolific with interviews, and we had local billboard campaign that the defense was able to convince the judge to not allow me to use the video testimony of the doctors and nurses in deposition. So their testimony at the trial is already out there. I can use their audio and transcript testimony from the depositions, but I'm still under a gag order for their video.
But the
Uh,
video, was that published at the time?
no. So they did a preemptive strike for me to not be able to use the video depositions of the doctors and nurses.
It's sickening. I mean, Scott had a good expert. I read a lot of it, and it's just so obvious. And I'm an expert. I did anesthesia. I understand the lethality of those drugs and the risks involved and the whole thing. I mean, I did
Right.
my own anesthesia with the help of an RN. So, I mean, it was a clean kill by the medical. That's what
So
we call
then
it.
ultimately we went through, got all the way to the pretrial. The pretrial was in May. An interesting sidebar, the pretrial I'll come back to because I filed a motion for a new trial because of the pretrial. So the pretrial was in May. All big cases have a pretrial. So it was a 2-day pretrial. I had to fly all the attorneys in for that. And then we had the 3-week jury trial. So that was June 2nd through the 19th. The jury gave their verdict on the 19th. We lost 11-1, and it was a shock. But I wasn't surprised as I processed things because the legal system has been doing this for a long, long time. The people are programmed to trust the medical system. I assume, which I shouldn't really assume this, but the cross section of the jury, I presume, was 80% jab, just like the rest of the
Yeah,
country.
yeah.
So what the defense was able to do was they presented me as a religious conspiracy nut. And the reason they were able to do that was because of the pretrial. So I filed a motion for a new trial on October 19th. The hearing for that was on December, or not, October 29th, and the hearing was December 19th. So just over 2.5 months ago was the hearing for the motion for new trial, and the judge denied it. So why did I file a motion for a new trial? During the pretrial, both sides file a series of what's called motions in limine. And what motions in limine are the things that you don't want in the trial. And so the defense, for example, did not want anybody to use the word murder when they're on the stand, but that's logical. It wasn't a murder trial. It was a wrongful death trial. So that was a reasonable request. The judge granted it. The judge had already made some derogatory comments about our billboards, my media, and had done some lockdowns of the courtroom with people coming in. He even scripted what they could wear and not wear in the courtroom for the trial. But ultimately, that's okay. I mean, that's within the judge's parameter. But then our legal team had explained that I was doing local, I was doing media right up to the trial. And the judge was irritated with that. He made reference that you don't have control of your client. He shouldn't be doing media so close to a trial. And he said there's going to be consequences and they're all going to be on the plaintiff. So then we got to our motions in limine. So we hear the defense's motions in limine. The judge makes those comments. We get to our motions in limine, and he says all of plaintiff's motions in limine are denied. So he never heard it. He didn't hear one syllable of our argument for why we want our motions in limine. So of course, our motions in limine, Robert, were based on not bringing my religious beliefs or my research relative to COVID post Grace's death into the trial. Made perfect sense, right? There's a state statute that protects religious beliefs, but then the post Grace's death research had nothing to do with what they did to nothing to do with what happened to Grace in the hospital.
Did he even
So
read your motions in limine?
I believe he did because he was so thorough. He was always prepared for every hearing, so they were filed
So
well
this
in
guy
advance of the
seemed
hearing.
rational. He didn't seem like a
Yep.
crazy leftist.
Yeah, he did not seem like that at all. But I think it was out of anger that he denied them. So I filed the motion for a new trial because the defense did a fantastic job of painting me so that the jury would see me as an outsider, not somebody that I was not like them.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, so it is what it is. I mean, I am thankful for the opportunity. As I said, Grace is a martyr. She, because of the trial, she has saved literally thousands of people's lives, Robert. It's amazing. The traction that over 1 million people saw some parts of the trial. So that was fantastic.
Did we go
So
over? Did we go
go
over
ahead.
the financial incentives the hospitals have it's like they get $50,000 when they die and $50,000. Just go over that rapidly. I don't think we
Yeah.
did.
So, I mean, they received an incentive for, labeling somebody as a COVID patient
Right.
when they checked into the hospital. Of course, the incentives for the countermeasures, remdesivir, tocilizumab was another countermeasure you don't hear about. I dug into that one because the doctor had recommended tocilizumab to me. I researched tocilizumab then in the hospital with another doctor from the outside, and her and I both came to the same conclusion. The New England Journal of Medicine had done a study that showed that the drug was more harmful than the placebo group, and the drug had several side effects. So when his counterpart came in the room and asked me, "What did you decide about tocilizumab?" I said, "We're not doing it." And he said, "What's the reason?" And I showed him the New England Journal of Medicine article, and he got pissed at me. They don't
Challenging his authority.
yeah, exactly. Well, then I dug
Jesus.
into tocilizumab afterward because I'm wondering what's going on. Why are they so irritated with this? One dose of tocilizumab was 22 grand.
And the hospital gets a kickback of 50% or something. That's crazy. Any medicine delivered in the hospital. I mean, it's
It's
just
re-
nuts. The
it's
cancer
it's crazy.
chemotherapy agents are all like that.
Great. They labeled Grace on her death certificate. It said she died of acute respiratory failure due to hypoxemia as a result of COVID-19 pneumonia. By labeling Grace's death certificate that way, they received $13,155. Grace did not die of COVID.
Yeah, she was
Period.
suffocated by
Exactly.
medicines administered. Well, I hate to go over that again.
I'm glad you did. I mean, people, I'm not expecting that the whole world is following the story, so you have to give them some type of introduction.
How many people in the United States have died under similar circumstances in the last 4 years? And the incentives are still ongoing, aren't they?
I can't talk to the incentives ongoing. The standard of care incentives are ongoing, but I can't talk about the COVID incentives being ongoing because I don't know. But during that 39-month distraction, we had 1.2 million hospital murders, which that might sound little or large to some people, but it's huge.
COVID
Uh,
related. COVID
We
related.
we were the
Yeah.
number one country on the planet. We only have 4% of the world's population, but we were number one in hospital deaths. And number two was India with 534,000, and India's population is four times
534 million. Oh,
500.
534,000
Yeah, less
COVID
than
deaths.
half of the United States, and their population is four times that of the
Yeah.
United States. I mean, so you can tell we have, um, then you have, you have a president running on one of, his medical platform is Operation Warp Speed Save the Planet. It's insane. I mean, Operation Warp Speed is responsible for probably more deaths and disabled situations than any other thing that's ever happened ever on the planet.
I don't know about that one,
Well,
but
think about right. Well, think about how many people just in the United States. There's 700,000 that have been killed from the jab already.
yeah,
That's a result of Operation Warp Speed. Millions disabled. Worldwide, it's in the billions already
fatalities from the jab.
from the jab. Yes. So, I mean, Operation Warp Speed was a success in their satanic system, but it
Yeah,
was a complete failure if you care about human life.
man. So is there anything else historical before we get to the book?
Can I get back to you on that?
Yeah.
I'm just kidding around again. You got me at my high point of jokesterness for the day. So
It's okay.
we're in good shape. No, I don't have anything else. I think we did a good job reviewing.
So when the thing went over with, after you sort of licked your wounds emotionally and so on, you started writing your book.
Not right away. I had started a series. So I've done some major research projects. I did one on medical murder. I did a 7-part series on that. I did a 4-part series on escaping the Matrix. And then I started a longer series called Escaping Babylon. How do we get out of this system? Yeah, and I started working on that right after the trial. And then God put on my heart to write down everything you know about the medical industrial establishment, which I have about 4,000 hours of research into that. And so that's when I started writing. And I wrote the book. It was surprisingly fast. I never thought I'd write a book, but it was going to be an ultra long Substack. And then what happened is I had a few people. One was Dr. Margaret Aranda, and I had her.
She's a good friend of mine.
Yeah, she's excellent. Well, I wanted her to review it because I wanted it to be technically right. And so when she reviewed it, she said, "Scott, this is a book." So then I had a completely different mindset of, okay, I got to rewrite this now from a book perspective, not a Substack, because it has 70 endnotes. I brought all the receipts, but I had the receipts before. I'll just give you an example. So I have a quote from Ezekiel Emanuel in the book, which I've quoted him many times. Ezekiel Emanuel was one of the chief architects of Obamacare. He said non-contributing members of society don't deserve medical care. So I've quoted him many times, but I didn't have the source. So then you got to dig in and find all your sources versus just quoting. So it became it documented with, I had to cross all the T's and dot the I's, and then little things that you don't think of with a book. So for example, I have a picture of Trump with RFK Jr. in an airplane eating McDonald's food. Well, you can't have the McDonald's logo in your book. So I had to, you got to scrub all that stuff to make it.
Yeah, yeah.
So you try not to get sued if you can help it, right?
So did you self-publish or did you get a publisher?
I did self-publish, and the reason is because I have a friend who's a publisher,
Yeah.
and he helped me tremendously. So I contacted him, and after Margaret said I should write a book, so now I had a draft of a book, and his name is Jeremiah. I said, Jeremiah, can you read this and will you publish it? He said, so he read it, and he said it really doesn't fit into his wheelhouse, but he said I'll help you self-publish. And so he gave me some great pointers. So, for example, I didn't have any chapters about grace in the book. He said, Scott, people are going to want to know about grace. So I wrote chapters about grace. I have a chapter that documents her last day on earth, blow by blow, the hospital stay. So those were added after the fact because it wasn't intended to be a book to start with. So he helped me cross the finish line, self-publishing. that the after writing the book was 25%, 75% is getting it to the finish line.
Yeah. Do you typeset it
Yeah,
yourself?
he did that.
He did that. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, so he
There's a
did
lot
the
of skills there.
typesetting and then he recommended hiring a copy editor, so I hired an editor because it's a I wanted to put my best foot forward. The book is outstanding, and she didn't change any of my style. And I also didn't want my words changed unless they were technically wrong. And so she respected all that, and it was really a great relationship to work with the copy editor. But just that process is intense because you're going through chapter by chapter and just nitpicking every detail. And we
So it,
did all that.
do you have a copy you can hold up for the camera?
Yeah, I just got it yesterday. Because this is not available. It's being released on
Yeah,
March
yeah.
10th.
Very cool.
But Ingram Sparks, the international publishing company, I had to order one from them that I could proof, and I took the extraordinary step of I'll just give you and show you. Um,
So you put it through Ingram and they put it through Amazon, correct?
correct. Yep.
Yeah, that's the way to go. They make a little less money, but Amazon can't censor you then.
Here's the picture I told you that I had to scrub. So here's the picture. Yeah. So this, I chose to make it color. So
Yeah.
all of my diagrams are in color. Then, you make a couple dollars less per book. And by the way, all the book proceeds are going to Grace's nonprofit. So we're not going to make a penny on the book either. That's not the goal. The goal is to get this information out to the public. And I wrote this book from the perspective of a person who's awake like you, Robert, will read it and it'll be like a walk in the park. Say, yeah, 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 yeah. So then what I did, took another step. We indexed it. So we
Yeah.
did an index. So it's a research book. But then when you read it, you'll see, oh my gosh, this can be used to wake up a friend of mine who's not awake because I wrote it in a gentle perspective, but it's also blunt. I mean, I brought the receipts. A real good friend of mine who reviewed it said, Scott, you didn't leave anything on the table and you brought all the receipts. So it's written, it's intense. It's blunt, intense, but it's gentle at the same time. So, what I'm really hoping is we can get outside the echo chamber with this book.
If they're sharp and they're motivated, it might help. But most people DFR and DFL, you know what that is?
Yeah, you're going to tell me. Go ahead.
Don't freaking, and I use another word, don't freaking read and don't freaking listen. So that's my original.
You're giving me that for no charge today,
No
right?
charge. Yeah.
Okay, very good.
It's so well, that's a major effort to self-publish your first book. And I've self-published six, and it does get easier. Did you use what is the name of this? Did you use a program to write it in, or you just use Word?
I just use Word.
Scrivener's easier. You didn't use Grammarly either.
I did use Grammarly. Yes.
Yeah, the paid
That was
version.
at your encouragement.
Yeah.
You got me onto Grammarly about I think about a year ago. I really liked the program, so that is a real helpful tool. I mean, so the copy editor at least had
It was
the
cleaned up.
easy stuff
Yeah.
off the table. The hardest part of writing a book isn't the writing; it's to lay it out so it's logical. So I learned this way back in college is before you write put your outline together. So once I had the outline together, it's like, oh, this is a snap to write it.
So it was a year that it took you.
I started in August and, so less than a year. So I
That's
started in
quick.
August. Yeah, I was done. I was done with the manuscript from my perspective, the beginning of November. So everything from the beginning of November to the beginning of March. So, so 4 months. It took 4 months from the time I was done writing to get it to be released.
Yeah, mine all took a year each, and then one took 3 years. My first one
Wow.
took 3 years. It's crazy. I mean, you can't turn out anything that's garbage. Nobody will
Yeah.
read it. Nobody will read it. Nobody will pay attention.
Yeah, I mean it's not, and I subscribe to that principle. That was how I was brought up. I was brought up in that era just to start with, but then when I went to college, the colleges weren't liberalized then. My first job out of college was at an international CPA firm, and they really drilled that in. The professionalism. So that's carried through. I've owned four different businesses lifetime, and it's carried through to all of that. I mean, we have very high-end service, high-end products, because I mean, you have to you have to deliver. Selling is the easiest part of business. Delivering what you sold is a lot harder than selling.
So you're in the promotional phase. How many contacts do you have in the podcast world that you're going to call up like me?
So I probably have 40 interviews booked already.
That's great.
I had six interviews yesterday. I have four today. You're my third one. I have one more yet today. Uh, and I had just three more scheduled today. It's been great. I have made fantastic connections over these 4 years. I've been on over 1,200 shows,
Wow.
many, many repeats, but I have a great database of friends, you being included, that, you guys are so gracious. So, I mean, just to give Robert a pat on the back. So, I text him, and then he calls, and we say, "Hey, when can you do this?" Well, just give me 24 hours notice. I got a hold of him yesterday and said, "Well, how about tomorrow at 1 o'clock your time?" Okay, let's do it. I
Yeah.
mean, so that's the type of relationship that I've been able to develop with these podcast hosts, and I mean, they're extremely gracious. I love it.
They're all motivated. They're all trying to warn, and hopefully this will get the word out a little more.
Yeah, it's really good. I don't think the book could have been launched 2 years ago because I didn't have. Well, first of all, I didn't have the knowledge base, but second of all, the network. It's really an elaborate network now for the alternative media world. To break into the regular media world. Yeah, I don't know if I don't know if that'll ever happen. I don't think you can look for me to have an interview with the Wall Street Journal anytime soon.
Those stupid bastards.
Yeah.
They're all bought and paid for, or something, or fooled, or bribed, or whatever. Is
Yeah.
there anything else we should cover here, Scott? Well, I'll link to the.
Well, yeah, I want to
Is there an
just
Amazon link yet?
There is. So if you go
Okay.
to ouramazinggrace.net, you'll see a picture of the cover. So the cover is right on the front page. And if you just click on that cover, that will give you all the ways that you can purchase right now. So there's Amazon, Kindle and book, and then Barnes and Noble, Kindle and book, and Goodreads, I think, has just the book, no Kindle version.
What is the there is a Kindle version.
There is, yes.
Yeah. And um yeah, Barnes and No what is it? Kobo is their Kindle, I think. So you should try to get it on that. I mean, there's a group of people that don't read physical copies. So,
Yeah, so I mean, we actually hit number one status a couple days ago with pre-orders. I mean, I was blown away by that, so I'm thankful for that. Just to I'll give you a 411 on the book, very quick 411, but then I'm going to share with you the secret that the book exposes. So the 411 on the book is the book proves the government has legalized medical murder by design. That's what the book proves. And I bring the receipts. It's not a dad's opinion. And it also proves that medical murder is the number one cause of death in America. So the question, is the government legally killing us? The answer is a resounding yes. And is the evidence obvious? That's one of the subtitles. Yes, the evidence is obvious. I bring the evidence to the table. And then I go through how we've become accomplices. And so, how do we become accomplices? Well, our fear of death makes us not, we just blindly trust the medical system because our fear of death. And then they do a great job with propaganda and programming us. So, that's all in the book. But the secret that I expose in the book is standards of care. And this, if people don't read the book, which I want you to read the book, I shouldn't tell you the secret, but yeah, it's
you're not going
that
to.
it's that important. Well, maybe I shouldn't.
Well, no, tell us because any kind of publicity is good publicity for this sort of thing. And
Okay, so
yeah.
the secret in the book is how they have systematically hastened all of our deaths, all of us. So it's a worldwide, countrywide eugenics program is through standards of care. And this whole standard of care model came into existence in the 80s, in the early 80s. Four or nine MDs at that time in 1984 published a book to say this is no good. They were uncovering the standard of care for cancer. They said, hey, once people figure out that this chemo is killing them, it will be taken off the market. But it wasn't. They silenced these guys. And so they came to the conclusion that a patient is better off never being diagnosed.
Yeah, no kidding.
So that was the conclusion, and they were snuffed out, not literally killed, but I mean, the propaganda stopped them from being able to speak out. So what happens with standards of care? So COVID showed the direct incentivization of the medical industry. Standards of care is the indirect incentivization of the medical industry. And so when a doctor gets his license, he can only prescribe within the bounds of the standard of care. And the story that I share in the book, I interviewed an MD for the book related to this specific story because I wanted to make sure that what I learned was true. So this happened to me in May of 2018. Cindy and I were still under conventional medical insurance, and the medical insurance at that time said, "Hey, listen, you're 55, you should go in for your physical. You only get charged $300 because you got this great medical insurance." So I go into the doctor, did the $300 physical, and he says to me, "Do you want to do a CT scan of your heart?"
Yeah, really.
And he said, "We're running a special, $2,000 for $80. It's normally 2,000, only $80." I couldn't turn down the deal. I get a CT scan of my heart, and I got a call the next day. You need to come in immediately. So I go in, and they tell me I have a 1,200 calcium score, which is what they call the OMG level because your walk around score should be less than 100. So I said, "Well, what's the cause of it?" They said, "Well, you got high cholesterol." "Well, what's the solution?" "The statin."
Yeah, really.
So praise God, I didn't just fall for that. I called the doctor that's who Cindy and I graduated from high school with. Her name is Sue. Sue, this is what happened. She said, "My husband Gary just had a heart attack 2 months ago, so I've been researching this myself." She sent me some information. I started looking into it. I spent a fair amount of time, a couple hundred hours, and realized high cholesterol is a scam.
It's a fraudulent metric. It
Yes,
doesn't,
it's
it's
complete
meaningless.
fraud, complete
Yeah,
fraud. And high cholesterol isn't even in the top 10 of the causes of
the
heart disease.
risks. Yeah.
So I went back to the doctor for the follow-up appointment. I said, "I'm not doing the statin." And I dug into the statin too and found out that it causes dementia, amongst other things. So I share this in the book, but here's the secret. So the secret is how the federal government controls healthcare in this country is through standards of care. So the doctor's nurse walks me out and she said, "Scott, I'm going to tell you something you're not going to want to hear." I said, "Well, what is it?" She said, "You have to take the statin." I said, I said, "What are you talking about?" I said, "I don't have to do anything." And she said, "Our Medicare and Medicaid reimbursement rates are based on what percentage of our patient population follows the standard of care. And the standard of care for a heart score that you have is the statin." I said, "I'm not on Medicare and Medicaid." She said, "You didn't hear me. It's based on our patient population. So if there's enough people like you who are unwilling to follow the standard of care, we have to fire you as a patient to keep our
It's
reimbursement
like
rate."
the pediatricians are even worse. They're
Yes.
poison shotting everybody with the quote vaccines, and they get bonuses for having all their patients on anyway.
That's right on. So anyway, that's the secret to how the federal government gets around their own constitution, which the Constitution gives the federal government limited powers. So how can they possibly control medicine with these limited powers? Well, the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services, because of the Chevron doctrine, controls all of medicine through the standard of care methodology because they decide what the
Finances,
insurance. Say that
finances,
again.
finances.
Yeah, finances. They use the reimbursement rate trick to make the doctors comply with the model that is designed to kill us.
No one would believe this, but the chemotherapy, there's only about five of them that have any efficacy against the diseases they're purported to treat. And for radiotherapy, there's only one that has any statistical meaning. And I don't even believe in that one. They claim that the seeds in the prostate help the prostate cancer deaths, but I don't believe any of it. I mean, it's just as sick, 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 sick. And
Yeah, I
they,
mean you are very well versed in that. I have the chart from this is a peer-reviewed study that shows that the if you survive 5 years in one day after having chemo, you're one of only 2.1%. That's
you're
a,
an outlier. Yeah.
great. Yeah, so I
And
mean those
most
of you,
cancers are curable with
yeah,
unconventional methods. I mean, it's
exactly.
just crazy. Pancreatic cancer is not the big bugaboo it was before because chlorine dioxide completely cures it in most cases.
So, just another plug for Robert. So, Robert was one of the men who I've learned to trust in all of this for many reasons. I mean, he's called and warned me about some nefarious players. When I was a newbie, just getting started, it's neat. People just don't do that anymore, and he's done it. He picks up the phone and does that, and he's also one of the ones I asked to give an endorsement for the book. He did that. He wrote me a very nice endorsement. His endorsement is on Grace's website right now, so I appreciate that. He's the real deal, and
There are
he
so many freedom move quote freedom movement people are chaos agents. That's Matthew Crawford's term. It means they're just here to confuse us, dishearten us, and discourage us. And they're paid, a lot of them. I mean,
even worse. A lot of them are controlled opposition,
yeah,
and
that's the
you know,
same. Yeah, yeah,
yeah, it's that was a shock to me. I mean, I didn't even know alternative media exists. I mean, before Grace died, I never listened to a podcast. I didn't know anything. Yeah, I just worked. Yeah,
yeah.
I didn't know any of this stuff, and um, but now when you get your feet wet in it, and then you see, oh my gosh, everybody's just trying to make money.
It's a freaking
Uh,
matrix.
yeah,
So, is there any other point you need to make,
that's it for today.
Scott? I'm grateful for your time, and we'll chat soon.
All right, sounds good, Robert. Thank you.
Thank you.